So, trying to figure out why I am here. I don't know, I'm gonna actually do dishes while I talk, but, so, am I here to learn how to be a better person? Am I here just to participate in this massive experiment of a world? And like Jesus said, to be forsaken, for everybody else around me to learn from my mistakes, so that people can watch and learn from all the bad stuff I do. I've gotten a lot of comments about how it was my fault that we all got sick. And I think that there's a misconception as to people thinking that I am blaming Costa for getting sick. Barring the fact that if they did in fact infect everybody deliberately, meaning that they actually participated in putting the virus with their own hands onto the boat, and it didn't happen to be some sick person that just happened to be on the boat spreading it to everybody. Unless they actually did that, which right now I haven't been able to rule that out. I haven't been able to rule that out at all. In fact, I have evidence that points to the possibility that they actually did do that with their own hands. I don't know what it was that they were putting in the air conditioning units. I don't know what they were putting in there. But I have yet to actually find somebody. And I've put that picture of them putting stuff in the air conditioning vents on the cruise site, as well as on my Facebook page, trying to find somebody that actually knows what it was that he was putting in the air conditioning. My thought before all this happened would be that he was putting, something that was supposed to be there. But there's some things about how he did that and the way he reacted that make me wonder and make me a little bit more suspicious. And the fact that everybody got sick also makes me a little cautious. So if they didn't have anything to do with it, specifically putting something on the boat with their own two hands, deliberate, then no, they did. It was not their fault that we all got sick. It's not their fault that we got sick at all. And I am not blaming them for getting sick. That's not what I'm doing. And that's not what I think. I don't think that they caused us to get sick. I don't think that they responded to the breakout appropriately. And out of every single solitary organization on the planet, cruise ships should be the ones that have that the ability to react appropriately, because they are a ship, because they have what I guess cruisers call the cruise crud all the time. They have outbreaks all the time. Now, granted, they've always been norovirus or influenza or something of that nature. But they should be the most prepared out of everybody. And they should have the most experience with dealing with outbreaks of everybody. What they did in that process not only was not an appropriate response to a virus outbreak or to a contagious outbreak, the actions that they took are exactly opposite. Yes, opposite of what you should be doing in an outbreak. There are only two reasons why they would do the opposite of what they should be doing. And that is, one, intentionally trying to maximize the infections and maximize the deaths and maximize the exposure. Or two, they already knew that there would not be deaths on board. They already knew when the outbreak was going to happen. And they already knew the way it was going to progress. There are several pieces of my puzzle that support the fact that the doctor on board had either had it already. If you're seeing a patient with a high fever and symptoms of coronavirus, and you have any kind of intelligence whatsoever, you're not going to be meeting with that patient without a mask on. You're not going to be meeting with that patient without gloves on. And the doctor on board early on was not doing that. He had no mask on. He had no gloves on. He was not protecting himself in any way, shape, or form. So there's three things that you could say. The doctor was completely unaware that this thing that was on board was anything other than a typical common cold. And that what the world was seeing was a complete overreaction to a virus. Now you have to remember, this doctor's been on the boat the whole time. He's not listening to anything on the internet. He's not watching what's going on in the world. He's hearing it probably secondhand, probably in a memo or whatever. And he's thinking to himself, you guys are so overreacting. The numbers are so low. This is just a common little outbreak. That's one option. That's number one. He's thinking the same thing I did, that the world is panicking over absolutely nothing, that there's nothing to be concerned about, and that this is way overblown, and that the chances of us actually having it on this vessel are pretty slim. That being said, he's already sent one person with a double pneumonia and heart issues to the hospital who does end up dying. Did he know that this person was COVID positive? I don't know. From what I heard, this person collapsed in the lobby and was taken to, this was actually in port, collapsed in the lobby and was taken to the hospital from the boat. So the doctor may not have even examined him. So there's that possibility that this doctor really truly did not know that this virus was on board and how deadly it was. Or number two, he had already had it, knew it was on board, and knew he couldn't get it. Three, he is actually part of the whole thing of putting this virus on the ships intentionally. And because he's putting it on the ships intentionally, he's also part of the group that has the vaccine or has the ability to protect himself and is not worried because he's already been vaccinated or he has the drugs that he needs should he get sick. That's the third possibility. So I don't know which one of those they are, but those have to be answered. Like that's an investigation that needs to be answered, that has to be answered. And the only way that we're going to be able to find those answers and be able to dig deeper into the files and dig deeper into what was going on that ship is to do the class action lawsuit. It has nothing to do with us thinking that there's actually it does, but there's nothing. We want to know how much fault there was, whether or not if this is a sick person that got on, thought they had a cold, thought they had the flu, whatever it was, and it spread. That's completely natural. That happens on ships. It's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing that they could do about it until they find out that that's actually what's on board. And then once they find out that that's on board, then the necessary steps, and that's where we have to talk about the response. So if you have a deadly virus on board and you have 1,400 passengers and 1,000 crew members, and those 1,000 crew members have already been exposed for 2 weeks or have been around that vessel for 2 weeks, they are in a very huge predicament because they were already sick. We heard that when we got on the boat. So you would wait for the test to come back in San Juan before you would head out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you have no hospital support. You have no ability to transfer the sick and the critical. You have no way of being able to bring on more medical personnel should your medical personnel fall ill and not be able to take care of patients. You basically are dooming those patients that are critical to death, which actually, according to maritime law, they don't allow them to sue for as much money if you die at sea. And so that actually works out in their favor, in Carnival's favor, if those passengers that are sickest and are the most ill die. If those people die at sea, then they're not allowed to collect as much money. So we have to look at that. That's a huge deal. And then the second action that they took was to shut down everything that didn't make them money. So everything at the bars were open. And if anybody knows what happens when you drink, as you get really close to everybody and you're very friendly and you're very open and you get really close to everybody. And you put them all in a very small space and only in 2 or 3 spaces on the ship. And you've got crowds of about 300 people gathered in these bars, and the casinos were open and the shops were open. So that says we want money. We don't really care about your health. So yeah, so that's another thing that it was the reaction to what happened, not necessarily what happened. I hope that makes sense. The third, and I think probably the most deadly part, was when they decided to put 350 people on a plane, sick and the people that with no symptoms. And they decided that the people that could get on the plane could get on the plane as long as they didn't have a fever. They could be coughing, they could be contagious, they could be very seriously ill, they could be unable to walk, that they were so ill. They could be where they couldn't breathe, they couldn't keep their mask on because they couldn't breathe. As long as they didn't have the temperature, they could get on the plane. And knowing how many of them were sick, we're going to put them on a plane with no medical personnel. I was the only medical personnel, and I was actually a medical personnel from like a long time ago. So that being said, and holding us on a bus for 6.5 hours and then holding us in the plane for 12 hours without any food or water for the most part, you're basically saying, I want these people to die. Would you guys please hurry up and die? And that's not appropriate for the United States of America. We're better than that. This government's better than that, or at least the people of this country are better than that. I don't know if it's the new generation that's trying to do this. It doesn't appear to be. It appears to be an older generation that almost is like, you know what, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take this new generation out. And we're not going to leave them the world that we got to have. And that, my friends, is the biggest mistake you could ever make. And I'm not going to tell you why. But that's the biggest mistake you could ever want. Biggest. And I'm going to let you find that one out for yourselves. Because you need that. You need to find that out for yourself. And you need to suffer the consequences of that. So, that being said, we have a responsibility and a duty to hold these people accountable. We've changed some laws. We have changed some things about cruising. There are more to change. There is no way in this day and age that a passenger who wants to board a plane should not be able to get online and see how many illnesses are on board. And not illnesses that the doctor's reporting, but illnesses that the passengers are reporting, where the passengers can self-report onto these sites so that future passengers can get on and say, you know what? They're showing 75 people with symptoms of whatever. I'm not getting on the boat today. And if that site is over a certain, what I think it's like 1.5% of the people on board are showing symptoms, then they're not allowed to sail. That has to be, there's absolutely no reason why that shouldn't be in place. None whatsoever. They're wanting to microchip people, but they're not wanting to make that a part of the internet system. That's stupid. That's really stupid. Dollars do not control what we do. Our humanity does. And this nation and this world will fall drastically if our humanity is not in place. It won't. It will not. We will not succeed. And for you old timers that think, oh, I'm going to die anyway. It doesn't matter what I do now. I'm so old, I'm going to die. This is what I'm going to do before I die. I'm going to take it away from the younger generation. You're not going to do that. We're not going to let you do that. You don't know who you poked. And you can poke me back. And I'll hurt. I'm flesh and bones. I really am. I will hurt. But what you make of yourself as you do that, the moment you do that and you try to hurt this country or hurt this nation, hurt the world, hurt our children, trying to like biochip them or whatever it is that you're wanting to do with this vaccine, I can guarantee you, I can absolutely guarantee you that the moment you try to do that, the moment you think about doing that, and you decide that that's an okay thing to do, even before you go do it, you just lost. And you lost big. Really big. So big. So big. Your job is to make this country great, amazing, incredible, an absolute paradise for these children that are coming up. Training them to be models. Training them to do it right. Training them to stand up to authority who they know is doing it wrong. And to listen to that little voice in their head that says, you know, this is probably a bad idea. And I just saw somebody die because of this bad idea that they have. My job is to protect that person. My job is not to obey blindly. My job is to stand up and protect those people around me. Absolutely protect those people around me. And if we're all protecting the people around us, guys, that's our system. That's how it works. That's how this body of the United States works. If you're not protecting those around you without regard for yourself, you just lost. You lost. You lost the nation that we were giving you. You lost it. And the only way to find it is to go back and do that. Because when you do it for somebody, you give them the courage to do that for everybody around them. And talking about spreading like wildfire, it does. It spreads so fast. It spreads amazingly fast. One good deed turns into 50, and 50 good deeds turns into 50,000, and 50,000 good deeds turns into 50 million. Because the circle around you that's influenced by your actions is huge. And I will look back at this and I know I will need to be hearing it. I make these videos as much for me as reminders, for my little voice to talk to me. So I hope I don't need to hear this more than once. I love you guys. And I love the world that I knew. And I hope that tomorrow I will love this one and learn to love this one and learn to go back and not be so angry at what I'm seeing. So that's tonight's journal.